Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Anime review. This one's going to be for episode 150, which is called The Value of a Hidden Ace. So this was the third episode of this Mujina Bandits arc. The last episode of, I suppose, setup before the big action kind of finish to this arc. So I hear people saying there's only one episode left in this arc, but like the manga has like 2 and a bit chapters like to cover the kind of ending and so on, but like we are getting into fighting next, so that's going to be interesting to see how exactly that plays out. Again, I don't really pay massive attention to sort of the descriptions for the upcoming episodes. I do very much just be like, okay, what's this week's episode? What's this week's episode? So we'll see how exactly that plays out. But this episode I thought was very good. Really strong setup, very kind of faithfully adapted. The only real sort of addition that we had to this episode was like a couple of extra sort of shoujoji lines of dialogue with Tento to sort of extend out those scenes a little bit more. With regards to, like, I suppose his motivations, which wasn't really covered too well in the manga. So I definitely appreciated that, in that, like, even me who's very familiar with the manga, I had a big moment of like, okay, so that's what they were going for overall. It was always going to be something like that, but it was nice to see it's just like stated like that their plan is to, you know, ultimately have Shoujoji eat Tento to get in close to the daimyo, to ultimately eat the daimyo, so that he is the leader of the Land of Fire. He's in that position of power. That was really good to see, that the whole demands about money and all this other sort of stuff was just a distraction to give him the time to set up the correct, corpse clones to get close to the daimyo. That's his overall plan. I definitely really like that, because I suppose that the main thing in this episode is probably the proper introduction to Shoujoji, and also how his jutsu works. He explains to Tento how it works, that he devours the people and then he becomes them. And then at the end of the episode we get, of course, the really creepy reveal that the way he quote-unquote devours them is by eating their brain. That when he eats their brain, he gets their memories, he gets their face, and can do that like perfect clone, basically. It's a forbidden jutsu, and it basically, turns him into a monster. Just like the fact that you got that creepy moment of him trying to bite like Tento's head right as Boruto comes in, which obviously creates this really interesting sort of background to the fact that we know a bunch of characters who he's transformed into. Yamoka, that means he was killed but like this, his brain was eaten. It means Kokuri from the last arc in Hozuki Castle was also killed in this way underwater. So that sort of reveal a few episodes later of like, this is how Kokuri met his end, by his brain being eaten and he got transformed into, is really brutal. And it's one of those jutsu where it's so like sort of disgusting and kind of brutal that it really makes Shoujoji into a very strong villain, because you just absolutely hate him because he eats people to become them. That's like so much worse than so much of what we've seen. And you see him still talking about like, why am I not on one of these cards? Like even Orochimaru's on one of those X cards. And his taunting of Tento, again, just him just viewing Tento as being sort of the way we as the audience kind of thought Tento would be from his first introduction, just the spoiled brat. He hasn't seen the kind of guts and kind of desire that Tento actually has, that we saw very heavily in like the last episode, that he is doing his training. He's putting that hard work in to try and become better than he is now, and Shoujoji doesn't really recognize that, of course, which will of course come into play as we go forward in this arc, but right now the setup is there. And I like the way they had Tento act around Shoujoji, of like, he wasn't just like terrified and like he didn't talk. He was willing to sort of, talk back to him and be like, look, you're not a ninja, you're not on the cards, you're not worthy to be a ninja. And even like him acknowledging what's happening here. He is purely being used to get at his father, so he's close to willing to, take himself out, commit suicide with the shuriken to not be a burden to his father. Of course, Shijoji stops him because he needs him. He needs his body. He needs to transform into him while he's still alive. That's the thing. He has to eat their brain while they're still alive, which is just crazy. But yeah, that's, I think, very strong, the setup there of, like, as Boruto comes in, the character that Tento has come to really, see. He's now going to get to see Boruto in action, and it's going to be a pretty cool fight. Of course, it's one of the bigger fights that we've had so far in Boruto, so the next episodes are, of course, going to be really, really well done. But we'll see just how crazy they go on the animation. I think the rumors is that they do have some of the better animators on, like, the next episode, so we'll wait and see, of course. As for the rest of the episode, like I said, it was mainly another setup episode. Like, it was nice to have, like, the scenes with the daimyo kind of showing that he is worried about his son, and ultimately does sort of prioritize him above a lot of stuff. But he still has to keep things, like, logical, in that, like, we can't just release everyone from Hozuki Castle. Like, despite being the daimyo of the Land of Fire, I do not have the power to make that happen. So he still kind of states, like, okay, we'll pay the money, that's no problem, but we need to work on this, like, to get some sort of a discussion going about something other than releasing all of the prisoners. That was, I think, well done, because again, Shijoji then reveals that that's not actually his goal. He doesn't really care about that. What he does care about is getting in close to the daimyo, and he gives himself time to make the correct clones happen that he needs to. And the other plot of the episode is, I suppose, Boruto's plot, that Team 7 is finally being given a B rank mission. It's going to be important. Konohamaru really gets across the idea that this is a big step up. You will sort of by default on these missions be going up against criminals from the bingo book, and the more challenging mission means that if you do fail, you'll be criticized more heavily. So there's so much more responsibility associated with it. So it's a big thing for the team to be just directly assigned a B rank mission, and not just sort of go on a mission and it sort of, elevate by default, kind of like Naruto Team 7, his first mission. So being just assigned one is a very big deal. But when Boruto goes to return the card that he wanted, that Tento sort of sneakily hid in his pocket, he overhears that Tento has been kidnapped. And so he has to prioritize this over the mission. Even though it's the mission that he really wants to sort of help them all advance, he knows that he has to do this because, on one hand, even though his sort of bodyguard duty is sort of over, I think Boruto does still consider himself Tento's bodyguard. And of course, they did a very good job at just getting across that they're friends. Boruto is not going to let his friend just remain kidnapped. He's going in. And he has to do it on his own because it was part of, like, the whole negotiating thing between the bandits and the daimyo that, like, don't tell the authorities, basically. So Boruto, has to keep that in mind. So he's going to have to go in on his own on this one. And so he just quickly stops by Sarada to kind of let her know that I've got something more important to do on my own. And I like this scene because it is her kind of acknowledging. She knows that this isn't just kind of Boruto sort of abandoning the mission and like, oh, what an idiot he is. She knows that there must be a good reason behind why he's doing this, and it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of interesting, that he's doing this, leaving us to do the mission on our own. But it's an important scene because it's Sarada becoming aware that Boruto's gone off to do something. So, it's a setup for, okay, we'll probably see Sarada and Mitsuki come in at some point, but we have to wait and see. So, that was good. He arrives in, and the big setup at the end of the episode is Shijoji versus Boruto, a sort of noted criminal, leader of the Mujina bandits, has a forbidden jutsu, and seems very, very strong. How is Boruto going to match up against him? That's going to be, of course, the key thing. And of course, I've read the manga. I know how the fight goes, but I'm very interested to see how they pace it out in the anime. What scenes do they really emphasize as being the like key parts of the fight versus the ones where they don't have to put as much effort into. And especially just the fact that, like, yeah, there's 2 more chapters to get to, I suppose, the sort of, defeat of Shojoji, and then there is a sort of epilogue chapter that kind of sets up like the next arc. But like I said, from what I hear, people are saying there's only 1 episode left in this arc, and I don't know if that means that just we're like going back to sort of different episodes covering different topics, and we're moving away from manga content, or what. I'm not entirely sure on that, but that's what I've like heard without really looking into it. So that'll be interesting, because like they have been doing it very faithfully, like 1 episode covering 1 chapter perfectly. So it'd be weird to suddenly accelerate and put like 2 and a bit chapters into 1 episode. But I'm not really sure. Like I said, I don't really follow the like episode descriptions as they're announced to sort of reveal ahead of time a little bit about what each episode is about. So yeah, that's pretty much everything with this episode. Yeah, just the introduction of Shojoji was well done. The explanation of the corpse clone jutsu, I like how it sort of has an impact on previous events of like, oh wow, that's how those characters got taken out. The Boruto setup of him, prioritizing Tento over the B rank mission was a nice moment as well. And then yeah, Tento getting to really stand up for himself, and not just be the sort of cowering kidnap victim that he tries to escape. He like tries to commit suicide as well. It was a good showing from him. Like I like that Boruto goes in and he talks about this kid's got a lot of guts here. So the continued setup of like Boruto has come to really respect kind of Tento, and now he's come to save him. So very well set up for the next episode. But that's my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this one. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.